Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural. And I hope you enjoy this new show, whether you're viewing it on the internet or listening to a podcast version of the episode. I do want to thank you for being part of my audience. You can also find links to videos or podcasts on miamighostchronicles.com, as well as where you can submit your story about any eerie experiences you've had, which I would love to hear about. Just go to the Submit Your Story tab. Please subscribe to our channel so that you receive notification of when we release a new show. And find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This is where I usually live stream and where I give you a behind the scenes look at locations where new episodes are being filmed at. I also tell you about all the interesting guests that will be appearing soon on Stories of the Supernatural. I hope you enjoy the show, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural. How is everybody doing today? Good? I'm good. I'm good. It's almost TGIF today for me. And of course, or you could say prep for the weekend day, whatever the case might be. But anyway, guys, like I promised, I have another fantastic guest for you guys. Okay, this is a gentleman who, as you know, because everybody knows that this is the type of investigator I like. This is an investigator who has been around for a long time and seen the evolution of the field of paranormal investigations. And the person I'm talking about is Mr. Jack Kenna. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Jack. He is considered to be one of the top paranormal investigators in New England. He's a tech specialist, a writer, author. He's also a public figure, and he is a member of the paranormal team SPIRITS, which is an acronym of New England, San Diego Ghost Hunters and Extreme Paranormal Encounters Response Team. He's also a senior engineering tech for the Department of the Army, and he's a regular contributor to Paranormal Underground and Living Paranormal magazine. Now, in 2015, along with illustrator Alex Cormack, he completed work on a new comic book titled Spirits, which I'm going to ask him about that, The Forgotten Souls of Bay Path. And in 2017, he released his first book, Hauntings, Ghosts, and Demons. And he's authored another new book titled Paranormal Research, A Comprehensive Guide to Building a Strong Team. I know somebody out there's going, hey, Marlene, you talk about that a lot. So, yeah, I want to discuss that. I'm going to ask him about that as well. Which is being released on, just released on June 28, 2018 by Schiffer Publishing. He's a regular on TV series. I'm sure you've seen him, Paranormal Survivor and Haunted Case Files, both which air on Destination America in the United States and Travels and Escape in Canada. He was also in the UK and Europe, and when he's not working on one of his projects, you can find him giving lectures and attending paranormal events and fundraisers throughout New England. So, how are you doing today, Jack?
That was long. I gotta get that thing down. I tell you, that was.
But you know
you read
what?
that whole bio. I gotta shorten that.
No. But you know what? You got a lot of interesting stuff. But what we were saying, you've been around for a long time.
Not as longer than some, not as long as others. But I haven't been around as long as John Zaffis has or Dave Giuliano, but I've been around for a little bit.
God, now that you say Dave Giuliano, I remember I would love to read his. Well, not the blog, but where people, I remember years ago, where people would submit like their little short stories about their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say a day, and it's like, you know what? I think today is one of those days. And I would spend like a couple of hours just reading these stories because they were so
because they're interesting.
Very interesting.
Everybody has a story too. Everybody has an experience. Not everybody.
Yeah, whether they want. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody in this field has an experience. That's for sure. And we all like to share them, and that's part of. To me, we talk about the TV shows and stuff. To me, that's part of what that's about. It's telling the stories in a new way, and sharing those experiences with as many people as you can on TV, obviously. Right. But people also get to share their experiences, and we do Paranormal Survivor and stuff like that. That's right. People who have experienced things, and we ask them. We don't force them. We ask them, hey, this show is doing this. Would you like to share your story? Right. And some of them do, some of them don't, and that's okay. like we were talking about earlier, just a little bit ago, some people don't want people to know.
No.
And that's perfectly fine.
And
There's nothing wrong with that.
and you know what? There's a whole, and we were talking about, contrary to what everybody thinks, everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame, because of reality.
Yeah.
There's people, especially if they've had a legitimate supernatural event that scared them, whether it was
Yeah.
malevolent or not. It's like they don't even want to talk about it. Like, if I talk about it, it's
Yeah.
going to come back. So I don't want to
Yeah.
talk
And
about
so,
it.
yeah, some people think that. And
Yeah.
hey, sometimes it's a good choice. Don't talk
Yes.
about it.
Yes. No,
Move on.
you know
You
what? I
resolved
hate
it,
to
move
say
on.
it. Some people, it's like, especially if it was something on a little bit on the dark side, it's like, you
Yeah.
know what? If I were you, I would like tread lightly when it comes to paranormal stuff,
Yeah.
because maybe for some reason you could open that door again. Just,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. Because we've had clients like that we've helped, and they're like, "I want to get involved with the paranormal." I said,
uh,
"Not right now. You don't. You really don't. You're not ready
exactly.
for it. You're not ready for it. And if you try to do
Yes.
it now, you're going to have the same problems again.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we've had people do that, and I've had to go
Hmm.
back and help them again and convince them the second time.
Well, you know what?
See,
And
you didn't want to do that.
and I
But I
have
won't
to
turn them
laugh
away
because,
just because they make a mistake. I mean, try to keep helping them. So,
well, and the thing is this, that everybody sometimes thinks, yeah, some experiences that some people have are, I don't want to, they're kind of like not really scary. They're unusual, and
yeah,
but some people have had dark things. It's like, I would never, if I were them, it was like, I don't even want you to say the word paranormal around me. It'd be like, thanks, but no thanks.
yeah,
And then there's some that are very foolhardy, or
yeah.
they, and I tell them because of experiences that, after a while, when you do this for a while, you realize, um, some people, because of experiences they had as a child, whether it was trauma or stuff, that there's just something about them. I hate to say this,
Right.
that puts a bullseye on them when it comes to malevolent dark forces. And I
Yeah,
tell them,
yeah,
you know
yeah,
what? If I were you, I would never ever dabble. I would not even never. Why?
right.
I would just say it's just better for you, because unfortunately there's something about you, okay, that makes you vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I know
And
people
and I
saying, "Oh, that's a lot of hype," and I go, "Yeah, there's people that are more vulnerable than
mhm,
others, depending if they've had physical and emotional trauma. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that
yes.
can make you, I don't know, maybe the dark side sees, that
Yeah,
person,
well, yeah, I can tell you that for a fact. In almost every single residential case we've done, now we
Mm,
get an 11-page form people have to fill out. They have to tell us all kinds of
right.
stuff, including medications, this, that, but
Mm-hmm.
traumatic events,
Yes.
whether they be, serious things, near death or rape or this or that.
Exactly.
And people who really want your help, man, it's an 11-page form. If
Mm-hmm.
people want your help, I get that form back within 15 to 20 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
People who like, oh well,
Oh yeah.
I'll get it back to you, and you never hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll email them back again. It's like, it's been a week. Do you want me to
Yes.
say send me the form? Yeah, I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna get to it, and they never get back to you. So,
Right.
but that's one thing we do require with our team. You have to send that form back. It's the only thing we're ever gonna ask you to do. Send that
Right.
form. I
Exactly.
won't ask you for anything else, and I really won't. Not a dime, not nothing. But that
Mm-hmm.
form I need, because the more information you give us, the better we are able to assist you. And it's not just investigating, it's recommendation of, did you talk to anybody about these events you experienced in your
Yes.
past? No. I think it's a good idea that you may want to do that.
Yes.
Reach out to your doctor, talk to your doctor about it, see if he recommends a professional for you to go see. And,
Mm-hmm.
and you take that approach to them, and you'll find they will. Because they'll listen to
Right.
you, and they won't listen to a family member. They won't listen to somebody else, or some things they've never told anybody of this stuff
Oh
to.
yeah.
Because
Exactly.
sometimes it had to do with a family member,
Yes.
and they don't
Exactly.
want to talk about it. They don't want
Mm-hmm.
to, because they still feel guilty themselves. And it's like, it's not your fault, okay? It's not your
Yes.
fault. But you need to go get this other help. Otherwise, and I do usually find in these cases, there is something paranormal going on.
Let me ask you.
Because what I believe. Okay, go ahead.
No, no,
No, go
no.
ahead.
Let me ask you in this case, and I was curious because you mentioned that and I understand what you're saying about the history. It's not a curiosity thing. It's very
No,
pertinent. Do you ever
right.
find that sometimes when you start reviewing it, or that they actually say it, that they have had some type of experience long before they called you in, possibly in other houses, or
Yes,
along the
yes.
years?
Usually, what when you dig deep enough, you find out it started shortly after the traumatic event.
Yes. Okay.
And I
Yes.
believe that's where I was going is these negative things are drawn to this, not
Hmm.
necessarily negative energy, but chaotic energy.
Yes.
It's a turmoil. It's energy that's in turmoil
Hmm.
because they're in turmoil
Yes.
spiritually and emotionally. And until they deal with that and until they come to terms, not forgive and forget or anything, but come to terms with
Exactly.
it and realize that it doesn't have to run the rest of my life and it doesn't have to ruin the rest of my life. I can make
Hmm.
better choices and I
Hmm.
can live with what happened to me, but not let it ruin my life. Once and we see this happen, we see them start to get this help and turn around and their
Yes.
lives turn around and things get better and we're able to get rid of that
Yes.
spirit that's in the home or
Yes.
whattever's there that's
Whatever is
affecting.
feeding off that turmoil that you were talking about. That's what, because that's what it's doing.
Yeah, and it attracts. That's why we say, what scares clients the most, for lack of a better term, we call them clients, but
Hmm.
because we are helping them. So
Right.
what scares them the most beyond just, they think, oh, I'm have a haunting, I'm terrified. What really terrifies them when I go in there and we go in there, I sit there and I go, now you understand, you have to be an active participant in getting rid of your haunting.
And they're
And
like, "What do you
they
mean?"
look at you with a deer in the headlight. What do you mean by that?
Yes.
You have to. We're gonna make suggestions to you, and I
Hmm.
strongly suggest you follow these suggestions, and pursue these other things you really need to pursue.
Yes.
Because if you don't, I can get rid of what's here maybe right now. It's gonna come back.
Yes.
Never gonna be able to totally get rid of it, and
Yes.
you're never gonna be. And we also teach them because I can't be there every other week or once a
Hmm.
month to stage their home. We teach them how to
Yes.
properly stage their home, keep that energy clear, work with them to improve their family relationships, bring more fun, more positivity into their home.
Yes.
And it doesn't take much. And once they see that and you're there a couple times and you're having fun they realize they can do this themselves and they just kind of take it on. And it works.
Yes. Yes.
It
And Jack, this is something, and I've mentioned it before in other shows, that everybody, of course, like they look at the Hollywood version, where like the either the Exorcist or the Paranormal Investigator,
Oh yeah.
clap of thunder, a prayer, well, it's
Yeah.
gone. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, yes, maybe at some point something is dispersed, but
Yes.
you afterwards need to maintain, because it's like almost either, like you said, smudging, whatever your paranormal, I
Yeah.
mean, your
Yeah.
religious beliefs are
Right.
prayers.
Right. And it depends on their religious
Right,
belief as well. You have
it's
to
not
work with
because one's
theirs.
better than the other, anything, whatever it is that
No,
you
but you have
believe
to
in.
work with what they're comfortable with or
Right.
what their
You need
belief
to
is.
keep up this process so that you don't let this come back in, like you said, because it's going to try to come back in.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
Definitely.
some people think, or like what you said, they want you to go there, do whatever you're going to do. Psst, it's over. Okay, I can come back. It's gone. Okay, thanks. Bye.
What I always like to say is they want me to come in and wave the magic wand and
Yeah.
make it all better. I said there's no magic wand, number one. I'm not Harry
Yes.
Potter.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
They laugh. They get a kick out of it. That's how you kind of start it. You make them laugh a little bit, and you
Yes.
bring that
Yes.
positivity into the conversation right away.
Yes.
And I say this is the things you got to do. You have to stay positive and don't be. It's hard. I tell them I know it's hard, but you got to try to stay positive and laugh and have some fun and do this. And I said if you're having, I let them know too. If you're having a bad day or something seemed to happen or whatever, you're frightened by it or scared by some activity, call me. I
Yes.
said, I may not call you back right away, but I will call you back and we'll talk about it.
And
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 once they do that once or twice, they realize, oh my God, he actually does pick up the phone,
well, in
or one of our other team members
you
does,
are
whoever they're
doing
more comfortable talking.
something which I think is really important, that a lot of people sometimes think, like, that you need laughter. I mean, I've
Yeah,
told clients, I said, by the way, I don't want you to see any horror films for now. None of these
yeah,
slasher,
yeah,
paranormal activity, none of those. I said, I want you
yeah,
to watch a lot of comedies. Okay.
yeah,
I want you to put on
yeah,
happy music in your house that you like.
yep,
Okay. I want you to sing out loud.
yeah,
I
yeah,
say,
yeah,
do this for a while. I mean, I'm
yeah.
not saying forever and ever, or I don't want you to
No,
walk around going,
no,
ha ha, like nutty
but
like. But I
right,
said,
right,
you need to try to be happy.
right,
Um, and people underestimate the power of laughter in these type of scenarios.
yeah. Yeah, because it can make a huge difference,
Yes.
especially over a long period of time.
Yeah.
You know, because then becomes just part of your nature and becomes part of your life. And you know, you're not laughing all the time. We all
No,
have our
right.
issues. We all
Exactly.
have stuff that happen.
Exactly.
But you're not always focused on all this paranormal stuff or these movies. And I tell them, I said, you know, what you see on these movies, TV shows, all this, I said, you know, that's all entertainment. You understand that's for entertainment, right?
Right.
They're like, well, isn't it even the reality shows? No, no, no. They're for entertainment. I said, now on the reality paranormal show, yes, the evidence we present or that's shown is real.
Yes.
You know, some of the stuff, the actual investigating stuff is real, but some of the things that happen are for entertainment purposes. That's
Right.
what TV is about. It's about
Right.
ratings. You don't have a show that you can keep on the air if you don't have ratings, right? So
Right.
it's all
Exactly. And that's a
and
and
even the ones we do where they do the reenactments, all the reenactments are all played up, and I actually
yes.
talk about that at one of my lectures, my newest
Right.
lecture this year.
That
It's like
also they speed things
reality
up.
versus reality TV, you know,
Oh.
and yeah. It's one of the parts of that lecture. It's like, here's Jack, you know, and we're talking about the history of this location. And I stop and I go, now all of that was real. That whole talk about the history of the location, oh, that's real. Now watch this. They do the reenactment with, you know, they show some of my actual footage where I did have something try to attach to me and it started making me shake, but I said something wrong. And it wasn't anything bad anyway, but it was trying to communicate me, show me how to communicate with you.
Right.
So you see the footage, I start physically shaking. It actually happened to me. But what didn't happen to me was what they show on the reenactment, Jack having a convulsion and falling on the bed, shaking like crazy, and birds standing around me go, Jack, are you all right, Jack, Jack, Jack? That didn't happen,
And
okay?
you're like,
That's not.
wait.
But yeah, we sit there, we watch it, we laugh because we
Right.
know
Because you're
how
thinking, okay, of course, this
unanimated
is what
I
they would
am
use.
during investigations. It's like I should be that animated. It's like having Bill Shatner play you. You know, I said one of these days I'm going to act that way at an investigation just for the heck of it.
But
You know, but
it's
you
funny,
watch
but
it,
yeah,
laugh. But for people watching the show, they think it actually happened. They think it's frightening,
yes,
right? And that's the
yes.
point.
That's
That's the
the
point.
wow
And I get it.
factor.
And I get it. And I got no problem with the shows doing that
Of
because
course.
the facts of the story are true. But sometimes the reenactments, and I get it,
Hmm.
they play it up or whatever. But you got to laugh at it. If you can't laugh at
Of
yourself
course.
and how they play things up, then don't go on TV because you know it's,
Well,
it's
this
what they
is
do.
you know, when I did Paranormal Survivor, um, I'm
That's
not
right. You
kidding.
did.
We
Yeah.
must have we shot it out of a farmhouse in Michigan,
Yes, you guys. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember. I remember
and
seeing it.
I was astonished. I'm not kidding you. We must have spent almost 3/4 of the day there shooting this.
Yeah.
Okay. First of
Yes.
all, the lighting. I never saw so much trouble with the lighting. Just for the background, I was like, "Are you kidding?" But anyway, we almost saw. I mean, they brought us lunch and everything, and
Yeah.
then for 15 minutes, it was like, "You're kidding." I mean, or even less because by the time you take out the parts where they do the reenactment,
Yep.
as far as
Yep.
what they actually include, it was like,
Yeah.
man, we talked so
It's
much. They
short.
wanted us to say so much for this.
Yeah.
But people
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
realize how
Because
much
they don't
they
know what they're
edit
gonna.
out and that they only pick and
Yeah.
choose
That's
certain parts that they want.
right. Right. That's gonna fit the storyline because you got to. People don't realize we give them the investigation, what really happened, and they write a story
Yes.
around it.
Yes.
And that's what they do. And I get that having done it myself with my first book, Haunting Ghosts and Demons, which is based on, there's 4 stories in there based on my team's actual 4 investigations, plus there's 2 other stories, plus some other stuff. But I did that. I took what we really did and I rewrote it
Right.
and made it more fun, but built the real things into it, our real
Exactly.
techniques we use, some of the stuff that really happened, some of the actual evidence we caught. So you can like read that book, you can go to our website and actually listen to the EVPs and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But I made the book kind of fun too, and added a few things that didn't happen. But you add it in a way that people, oh, that's all that happened. Well, that's what they think.
But you know what?
But,
And this is
but
another
I don't
thing
claim it to
because
be real. I mean, I don't claim
and
it to
this
be.
is you know,
So,
thank you Hollywood. That
yeah.
sometimes, especially, and you know that Jack, that paranormal investigations sometimes move along really slow. You know,
Oh my God! I tell people it's
sometimes
like
you go,
watching.
absolutely nothing happens, and you're basically falling asleep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Watching grass grow. Very often it's like watching grass grow. It's like waiting for it. Okay, nothing. Okay, you
And
know.
it's like, okay, it from a, you know, it's like you could even go back. Like sometimes it's not because there's nothing there. Sometimes there isn't, but sometimes it's just that nothing. nothing manifests. No
Right.
EVPs, no moment where everybody looks at each other. What did you? None of that. Like, or oh, dude, no, oh, dude moment. It's
Yeah.
just, and that happens a lot of times, more than people think,
It does.
because
It
they
does.
think that you're gonna walk into a supposedly haunted place and then stuff gets thrown around, and then it's like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no,
No,
that's not
no,
accurate.
that doesn't happen very often. You know, I've never had anything thrown at me yet, but well,
No,
no,
I
I shouldn't
haven't
say
either.
that. It did happen one time. I had a piece of paper thrown at me. I
Really, that's
literally
cool.
did. Literally did, and it's you caught it on the camera, but it was at an event thing I was doing. It's at the Spalding Inn up in New Hampshire when Jason and Grant owned it, as a matter of fact.
Uh huh.
And it just, I was actually saying goodbye to whatever might have been there because we had some activity the night before, and this little piece of paper comes flying from the other side of the bed right over at me and lands in front of me. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You don't want me here. And I could kind of get that sense of it too. But
Yeah, it's like
explain that
okay,
to me.
but
It actually made an arc through the air and lands in front of me. It's like,
it's like, where's
okay,
this
I
going?
can't explain that. There's nobody in this room but me, but I can't explain that. But
Well,
okay, you know.
I remember one time I was interviewing the investigators at Black Hills out of Deadwood up in the Dakotas.
Hmm.
And one of the founding members, he tells me one time, this is a small house, by the way, and of course the basement, the cellar, which is like, man, that's number one creepy place in a house. He got slapped in the forehead, hard. I was laughing, and
Somebody
he
didn't
says
like
it
it.
was like, yeah, he got slapped in the forehead, and
Oh
he
boy.
was like, this was not like, oh, like I brush up against something. He's got slapped in the forehead, and I thought that was funny as hell, but
That
you
is.
know,
I think that is. I think that. I've been touched on the shoulder a couple
yeah,
times. Had my calf grabbed by something. I've had my leg pulled and something put its hand on my shoulder and my hip and rocked me in a bed one time.
yes,
Yeah, weird stuff, but nothing. I mean, and nothing bad. I mean, really nothing bad.
right,
Um, I have run into more recently, and I actually was talking to Dave Giuliano about it and a couple other people, demonologists. I have run into a few demonic cases of late,
hmm,
which is extremely unusual.
right,
That's why I was talking to them about it. I said, what's going on? I said,
right,
because I know from you guys what to watch for, what to look for, and I'm
hmm,
running into this. And they're typically very quiet. The investigations themselves can be very quiet.
yes,
Not a lot happens, but you pick up on other things. Some things happen. I've had on each of those investigations, I had my given name spoken loud and clear through devices. Now,
oh.
everybody knows me as Jack Kenna, but that's not my given name. My given name is John, and it says John Kenna. Nobody calls me that on
Right, I
investigations.
was gonna say. So
And
you're
then
like they're letting you know. Guess what? We know.
right, and then I've had my son's name said, repeat it and repeat it, and I'm going. It suddenly dawned on me. I go, is that a threat? And it says yes, loud and clear.
Oh
Okay,
shoot.
okay. So these are the types of things, you can get very angry for no reason at all, and you're angry at everybody
Yes.
else, and you got to realize what's happening and walk out
Yeah.
and go, wow, okay, that wasn't. And the minute you walk out, everything's changed, everything's
Mhm.
different.
Mhm.
So you catch these little hints and little things, and you do get some EVPs, but for the most part, those investigations are fairly quiet. Not a lot happens. Somebody might get touched, somebody might feel a burn on the back of their neck, but mostly it's like feelings of fear or anger or,
Mhm.
and what was happening to the family before you got there.
Yes.
So you watch for these things and you listen, and it's not always like you see in the movies or on TV with the smells and the this and the that, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's actually, I think, pretty rare, and that's what I'm finding out from these guys who do a lot of these. They said, yeah, and he goes, they don't really want you to know you're there. He goes,
Absolutely not.
that's how we know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how we know, Jack, what you're telling us is true, because not a lot happens initially. It's not until you
Right.
go back and you try to get rid of these, clear these things, or you try to at least make the house comfortable for the people, that stuff
Mhm.
starts to happen. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Well,
Yeah, you know.
and this is a
I had
phenomenon,
something
Jack.
happen during the clearing too. I had something happen during a cleansing in one of those homes where the whole attic started to shake that we were in, and bangs and scratches while I was doing some cleansing and prayer.
Oh crap.
And oh yeah, yeah. And the girls were like, Jack, this whole attic's shaking, right? I'm like, yeah, just let me finish. Just don't interrupt me. Let me finish what I'm doing. And they're like, okay. And then it finally, as I'm finished, it started to die down. So, and they're like, yeah, that's can be typical of something, so you just got to be careful and watch what you're doing and reach out for help if you need it,
Yes.
because those are new for me. I haven't had many of those, and so I reached out to those guys and talked to them.
Well,
They're there for me if I need them. So
this is and I hate to say it because sometimes I do think that the D word, the demon word, is overused.
it is
It's lost
yeah.
it's very serious, but I think it's more rare than people think, the true ones.
Yes, it is.
And
It is extreme.
a lot of people, sometimes, and I've seen this sometimes where they say, well, they'll go into an investigation and all signs point to maybe, for example, a prior owner. This is an example, either because of
Yeah.
EVPs or whatever, or sightings.
Right.
And then somewhere along the line, this starts taking on a malevolent turn. Okay.
Mm.
What a lot of people don't understand is there's something called nesting. Okay.
Yep.
Now the way this works is if that human being, when he was alive, he or she was alive,
Hmm.
had an attachment, okay, which by the way doesn't mean necessarily that they were possessed,
No,
but had an
it's completely
attachment of
different
either a
things.
dark spirit or demon, in death they're still carrying it with them. That's why sometimes I've seen investigations that it looks like, for lack of a better word, it's a regular old dead person,
Yeah.
and then for some reason it starts going really dark, especially
Yeah.
when the investigators don't go away. Or,
Right.
like you said, they're quiet, like, okay, you got rid of the dead guy, good, bye.
Yeah.
And something, and it's because there's a good possibility, not always, but without knowing particulars, that that person or that spirit, when alive, had some type of attachment
Right.
that's
Right.
still there
And,
with
and,
them.
and if you pay close attention, you can tell there's something else.
Hmm.
Something doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Like when you're investigating, you make any contact with us, with human spirit or whatever, but there's some things else that come up that don't make sense.
Yes.
And that's usually an indication there's something else going on. And you got to try to figure out what that something else is,
Yes.
and try to call it out if you can. And that's one reason I actually, even today, I mean, I like to go a little old school and use divining rods.
Yes,
Not
I love divining rods. They're a
Yeah,
little bit
and
time consuming
they are,
because
but
you're
I don't necessarily look for answers with
right.
them. What I want to do is feel the energy that's coming through.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and they are kind of time consuming, and they're subjective and all that. But if you're
Let me tell
using
you
it for what you
something.
want to use it for, you can find out a lot.
Because like I tell everybody, being a paranormal investigator, sometimes you're the worst skeptic than any skeptic out there, as far as how high you set the bar.
I'm not a skeptic. I'm a believer, but I reserve my judgment during investigations.
Exactly. And I mean, I've used dowsing rods. As a matter of fact, I have mine right there behind my door. They're always like in my bag, ready to go. And I've used them myself to situations. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to give you, for instance, that it's like there was one time where my middle son, my absent-minded professor son, very intelligent, but he would walk away, leave the car door open, stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
In his computer, he had a bunch of crap. He lost one of his paychecks. So finally he comes to me and he goes, Mom, I can't find it. I'm like, Brandon, Mom, I put it, I think, on my computer desk, which has got a pile of crap on there. But although he goes, but I'm not sure, Mom. I know it's in the room somewhere, I think. And I'm like, Brandon. So anyway, I was like, we tried looking for it, of
paycheck. You
course.
better find
Didn't
it.
find it. So I said, okay, you know what? I went and I got my dowsing rods. And I said, I need to find the check in here.
Yeah.
And Jack, that thing took me, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And it starts pulling me towards the computer desk, but behind the computer desk. Guess what I found? I didn't find that check. I found another check that he had never cashed, like about 18 months before, from another job he had.
Oh my God. Oh my
Okay,
God.
that had fallen back there. Thank God it wasn't really for a lot of money,
But still, it's
And
still.
and I found it back there, and I had no idea. In other words, I was like,
Oh, yeah.
and it was like, I asked for the check. I did find the check. It was just the check that we were looking for.
Right. But I think it's because you're focusing your energy to find a
Yes.
specific thing, and it'll guide you to that.
Right. It was like I
Um,
wasn't looking.
And I found portals out in the woods that way.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah, you guys will see that on Haunted Case File Season 2 this year, by the way. We actually had somebody film that, and even I couldn't believe it's like, Really? It brought me to this tree. Okay. All right. So, it's a strange story. I can't talk too much about it, but I just gave a little something away, but that's okay.
That's okay.
Well, it's
Talk
probably
about it all
not
you want.
okay, but it's okay.
Now, let me ask
You
you
know
something,
how
Jack.
TV is. You don't want you talking about stuff until it airs. So,
Oh, okay, I
Uh,
understand. I told you about
yeah.
that before. Since I'm not gonna ask you something that you're not supposed to talk about. I
Some
understand
things I
totally.
can say, but some things I can't yet. So, but go ahead. What do you got?
Let me okay, and I ask my guests this, and I told you I was gonna ask you. Did you have experiences as a kid, or how did you end up doing this, getting into the
I don't. That's
paranormal?
a good question. How did I end up doing this? I don't know. It fell
You
into it.
know what?
No, I did.
Sometimes,
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of. I kind of did fall into it in a way, but I did have experiences as a kid,
okay,
growing up. Nothing bad. It was never anything bad, and it was. I used to hear my name being called, and it would sound like my mother. It would call me my nickname. Like she always called me Jay.
okay,
So I still hear it to this day in my house occasionally. And a good psychic medium friend of mine who I met totally by accident was able to tell me that it was my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother.
wow,
And I'm like, well, it might make sense. Why do we sound it like her voice? And she was always just letting you know you were there, she was there, or everything's, you're not alone. Because my mother might be outside or down doing laundry. And I'd hear it loud and clear. I go, well, yeah, Ma, what do you want? Mom, what do you want? And she'd go, what are you doing? What are you talking about? She go, well, you called me. I didn't call you. And it wouldn't be
wow,
just once. I'd hear it 2 or 3 times. And there's still times I hear it when I'm laying in bed or I'm not going to work a certain day. And I'll be just laying in bed, sleeping in a little bit, and I'll hear that, and I'm like, Grandma, it's okay. I'm not going to work today. I don't need to get up. It's okay.
wow.
And it'll
Yeah, it's
stop.
like let me sleep in.
It's like she thinks, oh, it's a weekday. You're supposed to be working, aren't you? Like, no, I'm off today. Don't worry about it. And then it
Wow.
stops. It goes away. So, and other people have heard it, and to them it sounds like somebody they know, which is interesting. But it's always my grandmother. Um, so that's interesting. And so I always had kind of those experiences. I
Mm-hmm.
had some strange things too, like be in a deep, deep sleep and feel like something very negative was coming after me and I couldn't wake up. And finally I'd wake up. I'd force myself awake. So I had things like that happen, but those were rare. I mean, those things are rare. So but I had all these experiences. And I was always interested in the In Search of shows and
Right.
Bigfoot and the UFOs and ghosts and all that stuff. But I
Yes.
kind of it wasn't until Ghost Hunters started, which I talk about this in my new book, I think, too, paranormal research, that it kind of rekindled things in me. And I met some people online. It could be called the Beyond Reality Forum, that
Okay.
TAPS had started. And that's where I met the Spirits of New England team. And we
Okay.
didn't meet for a year.
Really?
And I was actually, yeah, I was actually one of the last members brought on the team.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and we've just been the 5 of us ever since. They had some other members, some people fell out, people didn't work out,
Right.
and then I was the last one brought in, and until just recently, we just added one new member, Joe Sibilia, who's somebody I work with, but he's excellent at audio and video review and helps us out a lot. So we decided we're going to make him a part of the team. That's the first person in forever since 2009 when I came on that's been put on the team.
Wow.
So, I mean, and then just went from there. I mean, we wanted to do residential stuff. We wanted to help people. We learned a lot from Jason and Grant, going to
Okay.
their events, talking to them. And, we just kind of knew them too. Um, so they helped us out a lot, and so did others who have been in the field for a long time.
Exactly.
And it just kept going. And then we ended up on TV by answering an email. Actually, by making a phone call from a number on an email,
Uh-huh.
and spoke to the people at our house media, and that was for season 1 of Paranormal Survivor,
Right.
um, that I did with them, and we just all hit it off since then. They would keep asking me to come back, so I keep coming back. So
But you
if
know
they want
what?
me,
What it is also, Jack, that you've been around for a long time, and it's a wealth of experiences that you have as far
yeah,
as not only stories, cases. Okay,
yeah, we have a lot of
because
cases. We've done even some I consider cases even ones that I didn't have to go there, but I was able to help these people figure out things and resolve them,
yes.
just even over the phone. And sometimes people just need somebody to talk to, and that's all it is. They just want to tell somebody what's going on and
Mm-hmm.
try to understand it. Not that they're terribly frightened by it. They've had it in their house for a long time and they've been living with it, but they're getting like a little worried. And so we talk to them about it,
Yes.
and we just could give them some advice and things like that. And it's like,
Right.
well, it's never harmed anybody over all these years. I wouldn't be overly concerned. Just, just keep doing what you've been doing all these years. Just don't talk to it too much.
Well, you know what?
Encourage it.
And I'm gonna go on because this is my experience with and I know there's a lot of shows and there's a lot of paranormal investigators that
Yeah,
handle things differently.
yeah,
I personally don't think that living with a deceased spirit that's still earthbound is good for a household, for living people there. Even if it's low key, even if it's like you said, it's
yeah,
the one that wants to stay in the attic or in the basement
yeah,
and doesn't just wants to hang out. Because I find that, like you said, maybe for years it's really low key and maybe all you get
yeah.
is a weird noise or
Right.
but I've seen more often than not eventually it can get very dark. Okay.
Sometimes it can, and we let them know, if something
No,
does.
you know what? And there's people that's like, oh well,
Yeah.
if it's so and so, it's okay. And then it's like,
No, even then we tell them, no, it's not okay. You shouldn't be having to deal with that.
right.
So I know what you're talking about there. Yeah,
Well, and I tell
yeah,
them, a lot of, or if it's a family member, some people think, and it's like, oh well, if it's auntie whatever. I said, look, listen, auntie whatever, if you send her, if she goes out into light, she can come back and visit you guys and make sure everybody's okay, and that's
right,
fine. But
right.
you would never want a human soul to be earthbound, okay, which means
No,
stuck, okay,
yeah,
even if this
yeah,
is what she thinks she wants. And I said there could be a lot of reasons why maybe she hasn't moved on. Maybe
right,
she's scared, she didn't believe in the afterlife.
right.
It could be a million things.
Absolutely.
She
Yeah.
hasn't figured out she's dead. I mean,
Doesn't
it
want to be. I
happens,
don't know. Yes, we
um
do, and we don't know the reasons why different
yes.
ones are there. But yeah, I kind of agree with you there. But at the same time, you can't force people to
No, you
do anything.
cannot. You cannot.
You can give them advice, you can
Sure.
suggest things, but I always tell them, look, if something begins to get dark, if things start to change, call me and I'll come help you. Don't
Yes.
be afraid to call. But some of them just want to understand, like, well, why is this go doing this now? And I said, well, the kids all moved out and you're renovating. Well,
There
there's a
you
good
go.
reason
Yeah.
why, you know, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. Okay, you're messing with their place, something that they're
Yes.
comfortable with. So
Yes.
that can happen. I said, try this first. Try to just explain to them what you're doing, what's going on, and that things will calm down pretty soon. And
Yes.
see what happens. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. And that's when I say, well, call me and I'll come over and
Right.
we'll go through it. But I still make sure you got to still fill that form out though.
Right.
You're
And
still, you're still gonna fill that form out before I can come over though. You
well,
know,
you know what? It it
it's
it
fair
it,
enough.
it lets you get a better and one of the things that and I'm sure you've run across it, Jack, where sometimes
Yeah.
you have a person that I'm gonna their their grip on reality is not really that good. And
Very true. Very true. you know,
okay, you
if
know
I
what I'm
walked
talking
away from
about.
every case where we thought somebody was loco,
Yes.
I wouldn't do any cases. But
Yes.
yeah, because again, we discussed that can be part of the issue,
Yeah, exactly.
and that can be caused by so many things they've been through. So that's where
Yes.
if you really want to take these residential cases on, you got to be willing to take that part of it and make
Yes.
suggestions and say, hey, this. You have to look at this too. This may not be this. It could be this. But you'll find
Right.
they'll listen to you. I mean, you'll find they'll listen to you.
Right. Or and I've had some cases where you have some people that because they're a little bit, they kind of like get a very in other words, you might have, if they, and it is a big if they have something paranormal, it might be really low key or mm,
Yeah.
but they kind of get like a persecution complex, like they think it's evil or it's with
Yes.
me and it's following me. They kind of like make
Yeah.
it worse than what it is. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know, wow.
Some cases it's like they want it to be that.
Yes, yes, and it's like
You know,
or
because it
if you
makes them
tell them,
special.
or I've had cases where we've had to tell somebody, you know what, there's nothing really here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they get upset because they're like, no, there is something. It's like, no, there isn't. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why I say that form helps weed that down, and
Yes.
usually Every time. I could tell you with that form, every single time you've got something really going on.
Yeah.
Because it just weeds people out right away.
Now, let me
You know?
ask you, Jack, have you had the experience as an investigator that sometimes, whether either you got the case or you haven't even gotten the case, that you start having experiences, whether it's dreams or just stuff happening that you
Yeah.
know that you're either going to get a case or the case does have something attached to it because you start having things start happening around your house?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had that happen. Mostly with more negative cases. I won't say
Yeah.
demonic, but more
Yes.
negative cases. Um, with real negative cases, what I notice is I've got a GPS on my phone. I use it all the time. Works fine. But
Mm-hmm.
anytime I got a case where there's either something going to be really negative,
Mm-hmm.
or in the last couple over the last few years, these demonic cases, it tries to make me make a U-turn and go back the other way.
Oh, wow. How
I don't know why,
interesting.
but I have to reset the whole thing for it to work. But
Really?
it only happens during
Yeah.
those cases. I use it all the time. I mean, you use this thing every day. It never happens. Only with cases like that, and that's why kind of an indicator to me that, okay,
Yes.
I might be dealing with something else here than I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really odd. It's just really odd. And it will try to reroute me all these different directions and go in these different ways. And I'm like,
Yes.
what is this thing doing? And I'm like, and I finally caught on. Took a few times. I finally caught on.
That
It's
there
like,
was a
ah,
common
it doesn't want
denominator
me to
was
go. Yeah. Yeah. It was a negative case of some kind. It doesn't want me to go. It's trying to
yeah.
reroute me.
Yeah,
You
they
know.
want to derail
But yeah,
that.
I've had
Or
stuff
or
like,
sometimes like you said, you'll have the client, they call you like, "Oh my God, quick, like I need you out here like yesterday." And then all of a
yeah,
sudden they cancel. And it's like, okay. And I tell them, by the way, especially if you can't go out there right away, like I can't be there tomorrow, sorry.
yeah, yeah,
And I'll tell them, by the way, let me know if there's any changes, but please expect that you're going to find a lot of reasons why you want to cancel
yeah,
this.
yeah,
And they'll be like,
yeah,
no, no, no. And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But so please let
yeah.
me know. Don't, give me
Yeah.
leeway because,
Usually what I found, they call them and say, well, really nothing's happening, so I was just going to cancel because there's nothing going on. I was like,
yeah,
no, don't, no, no, I'm
yeah,
coming. I'm coming.
exactly.
Unless
That's,
you've got another good reason, you got something, family issue, something like that, I'm coming.
yes.
So
Yeah.
they're like, oh, okay, you sure? Yeah, yeah, but nothing's going on. Yeah, yeah, I know. It seems that way, doesn't it? Yeah, okay, let me get there.
Yes. That's the whole idea. That's the whole
Because it
idea. They
doesn't
slow
want you
down
to
things
go.
down.
It
It's like,
doesn't
okay.
want you to go.
Yeah, eventually
It
these paranormal
knows. I
investigators are
said,
going
you
to get
gotta
tired of being asked to come out here and then you cancel on them. So that'll
I
work.
mean, you gotta remember. I mean, you're talking on the phone with these people or whatever, and I guarantee it's listening.
Oh,
They know
for
what's going
sure.
on. They know what's going
It's
on.
going to try
I've had
everything that it
people.
possibly
I've had
can to
people.
derail it.
I've had people that had to refill that form out 3 times because every time they were done with it, suddenly it just wiped out.
Are you kidding?
No, those were more negative cases. It just the form the computer glitched the form, and that was it. So I said, one I had to mail it to her.
How to
I think
what?
I
Mail?
mail it to her, and she had to mail it back. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a negative case. Um, yeah, I don't think it was demonic, but it was negative. So I
Well,
said, I'll mail it to you. You just mail it to me. You
okay.
know.
Now, and since we went there, let's go there. Why do you think, in your experience, and it sounds like you've been asking yourself that question, that lately you've been running into darker cases,
Yeah,
possibly
yeah,
malevolent, demonic, if you want to take it there. Why do
yeah.
you think?
I think I know why.
Why?
I think I know why. A few years back, I met I met a bishop at that goes to one of the events, and he's well known. Um, he talked to me. He's also psychic, but
Okay.
he's talking to me, and he's like, Jack, he goes, you got this really strong light about you, and I'm like, whatever that means, because I have to take this stuff with a grain of salt sometimes too.
Right.
And he's like, no, no, no. He goes, he goes, was your mother? And he didn't know me. He goes, your mother was somewhat psychic, wasn't she? I'm like, yeah. How'd you know? Because she
Yeah.
used to tell us stuff, and I'm like, okay. And then stuff would happen. Uh, but she used to like to go to get readings done and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And people would always have a hard time reading her. They would tell her, you're a strong psychic. I can't read you. Go to this person. And
Right.
they'd send the one more strongest individuals they knew. And But they told, I mean, she was told she was psychic. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. I said, my mother had some abilities. I said, but he goes, no, it runs long in your family on your mother's side. But he goes, it seems to me it's culminating in you. And he goes, I'm going to pray for you to have some demonic cases. I'm
Are
like,
you
no,
kidding? He
no,
said
don't
that?
do that. Yes, he said that. I'm like, don't do that. Don't
I was
really.
gonna
He goes,
say,
no,
who
no. He goes, I'm gonna, because he goes, this is what I believe you're
like,
meant to be doing,
no.
and you can help people. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, don't do that right away though. And then
I,
shortly after that, about a year later, I had my first one,
you
and
know what? It's like,
then
thanks for
another year,
nothing.
about 6, 8 months later, I had another one, and I've run into like 4, I think now, and so I was talking, like I said, Dave Giuliano and some other
Mm-hmm.
people about it, and they're like, he goes, yeah, he goes, you started getting more of these after the first one, huh? Like, yeah. He goes, yep. He goes, did any of them seem the same? I said, well, this more recent one seems very similar to another one. He goes, once they know who you are,
Yeah.
they go looking for you.
Yes.
Because remember, they're not bound by anything. They're not human. They're not bound by time, place, anything.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, so they can be, affecting more than one person at one time. I said, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I didn't think about that.
Yes.
He goes, but sometimes you'll find you're drawn to that because of that, and there's a reason for it. And he goes, just go with it. He goes, you're doing what you're meant to do, and I'm like, yeah, really? I
It's like,
still don't want to
so,
go with it, but I'm
and
like, okay, I can call you guys, right? And they're like, yes, you can call us. We'll even come and help you if you need help and stuff like that. I'm like, good, because I mean, I know a little bit about these things. I don't know a lot.
right.
I know I have a lot of common sense, I think, about some things, but I don't know all these different demonic entities. I didn't study them or anything like that. And they're like, well, look into it a little bit, but we're here to help you. We can guide you and we can teach you if you want.
Well, this is
I'm
this
like,
is the
well, let's
thing.
see where these things go, you know?
They and I was curious to ask you, have you gone to these cases and expecting it's a regular, you know, haunted house per regular dead human being, and then it turns something else, or did you already know beforehand, like that it was either demonic or very malevolent?
No, I usually go into these things expecting nothing, to be
Okay.
honest with you. I totally just, I'm a believer. I won't tell you, I don't like to say like a lot of dudes, like, oh, I'm a skeptical believer. No, I'm a believer. I believe in the afterlife. I've seen too much. I know what I believe.
Right.
There's an after. So I believe in spirit. I believe, people have hauntings. But when I walk into a location, I go in expecting nothing. I
Okay.
want to find out what's going on. So I work in engineering. So I mean, it's like to me, it's like, okay, I got to start this project, and we had to work on this new design, and we don't know if it's going to work or not. But this seems like this should work, and this should. And then you've got to go in and you've got to do testing, and you've got to check on things. You got to figure out what is really happening, what's
Okay.
going on, and what's got to do with it. So I kind of approach what I do with the paranormal the same way. I got to go in, got to do some investigating, I got to feel it out, see what's going on. I will, like we talked about before, sometimes get hints of things,
Okay.
like, maybe I better be able to, maybe there is something going on here. I might need to be a little bit more careful
Okay.
in my approach, because I don't like to do anything, especially if I think it is negative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do anything that's going to make things worse for the
Right.
people that are living there.
Right.
So I take more of an approach of talking, and I discuss that in my newest book, Paranormal Research. See, I just plugged it there. See that?
Well,
So,
that's fine.
so
Plug
that,
ahead. Plug away. Plug away.
yeah,
Believe me. Let me tell you something.
but
Like I said,
I like to approach spirit just like I approach people. I want to talk to them. I want to say, hey, this is who I am. Yeah, I'm here to talk to you. I want to find out what's going on. We're asked to come in because a lot going on here, and these people are kind of frightened. So what's happening? But what are you trying to send a message? Are you looking for something? We're here to talk to you. That's what we're here for. Talk to us and tell us what's going on, and what's important to you. What do you want to talk about? So I take that approach, even if I suddenly realize it's not what I think it is.
right.
I'll still take that approach and just hopefully it probably realizes what I'm doing, but I'm playing the game, right? I'm playing the game of, I
Exactly.
don't know what you There is a point where if I want to make sure of what I believe it is, I will call it out. And then I'll just go, okay, I know what you are. All right, this is what you are. And then you'll see usually something happen if it is. You'll have loud bangs. You'll have all kinds of weird things happen. And then you're like, okay, called you out. Okay, I know what you are. All right, now we're going to back off. Okay. And then we back off from it. And I don't instigate it any further beyond that until I can get in there and really do some prayer and cleansing and try to help things calm down.
Okay. That was my next question for you.
Enough bothers anybody, more than what already was bothering them, at least. Anyway, let's put it that way. It doesn't ramp things up by taking that approach. I've found. So.
Let me ask you, in a case like this, when, let's say you go in, like you said, open-minded, let's see what's here. And you, somewhere along the line, you realize, okay, this is not just a nasty dead person, because that's what people don't realize. Sometimes you do have aspects of malevolent hauntings that really, it's just a human spirit, because this was a bad person when they were alive, and they're just dead people. And you get
sometimes
that
you find
nasty,
out desperate.
that bad feeling, exactly like when you're around somebody that's really bad, that you kind of like want to get away from them.
Yeah.
And you still have that same feeling even when they're dead, because you could tell that they project this energy which is negative. But
that's right.
Let's say you, in the course of the investigation, you realize this is not a bad dead person. This, I'm talking here, a non-human entity, malevolent, possibly demonic. That was going to. Do you back out and reassess? Do you contact somebody that is has like either demonologist or more proficient, or ask them to come back with you? How do you handle that?
We actually in our extreme paranormal encounter response team, Steve Culls is also a demonologist beyond being a Bigfoot guy. But a lot of people don't know that about him. But he is a demonologist. But I will also call guys like John Zaffis, discuss some things with them, or Dave Giuliano now has said he'd call me anytime. So I do reach out to other people who have much more knowledge than me. I also have some friends of mine. Katie Boyd, who's a demonologist, but she's on the pagan end of things, and she takes a different approach. And sometimes I like that approach better because it's less invasive, and it's more beneficial to the resident that's living at the location. So I'll talk to her, and get her feedback and see what they think and what their suggestions are, and then go from there. And then if I need to, I can always call one of them to come out and, take control of it. Because again, I'm still learning that part of it. So yeah, you can't be afraid to reach out to people who have much more knowledge than you and ask.
Absolutely.
I mean, none of us knows everything. Even they don't know everything, but they know more than I do, and they've dealt with other things more than I have. So, no one team can do it all, to be honest with you.
No, like I say,
when it comes to things like that, and you want to give these people the best help you can give them.
Yes.
So if you can't do it yourself, that's what I would tell people. If you can't do it yourself, reach out to these guys. They will talk to you. They will try to help you. And if you got to hand it off to them, hand it off to them.
Right.
Put your ego aside and hand it off.
Yes. Because ultimately it's about the client.
That's right. It's about helping that person.
Yeah.
It's not about you. And I've had a few clients, a few individuals lately call me and say, I want you to come out and help me with this and blah, 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 blah. And then I say, oh, okay. Have you talked to anybody else? Oh yeah, so-and-so's coming this coming weekend, and he's going to investigate. And then what are you calling me for?
Yes.
I'm not going to do this then, because you're just having this person come out. Well, yeah, but I don't think they can really handle it. Wait a minute. No. Who is it? And I'll ask them. No, I'll ask them who they are. And I know who that is. They're very good investigators. Work with them first.
Right.
See how it goes, and then we can go from there. If they have a question, you tell them, you talk to me, have them call me. I said, there's no magic. It's again, they want everything one and done. It's like there's no magic wand any of us can wave to make this go away. Well, they said it might take 3 or 4 times, and it might take 3 or 4 times. It could take more than that. I don't know what you got going on. So let's let them do their thing, and we'll go from there. I'm not stepping on their toes.
Let me ask you, Jack, what happens if in the course of your investigation And like I said, sometimes maybe you realize, okay, you know what, this is dark malevolent, and I think I
Yeah.
might be having a family member or somebody here that is under demonic, if not obsession, possession, oppression. Okay, in other words, this is not just the family wigging out because something
Right.
dark is going on,
Right.
where you think one of the members is getting oppressed. And I'm not taking it as far as obsession
No,
or
and that actually
possession.
happened, and that actually was going on in a recent case because
Okay.
the son's attitude and demeanor and mood had completely changed, where he was extremely angry and aggressive towards everybody just
Okay.
within a week and a half of moving in this location, and they were ready to move out. And I said, well, let me come in and let's see what's going on. So we ran into that, and what you have to do there is you go in, you investigate, and that same night we did a cleansing
Okay.
because we figured out what was what was going on. So that night I did a cleansing, which I probably would have done anyway. That's where we had the attic shaken and everything else. And then it's after that you just keep track, you keep in touch and say,
Okay.
okay, how's he reacting now? How's he acting? My God,
Okay.
he slept for the first time through the night with every day of the week for this week since we moved in. Okay.
Okay.
His attitude is much better. He's acting more like himself again. Okay. All right. And you have to keep just in touch with these people to
Yeah.
see is something else going on, what's happening. It's like I said, you can't go in, investigate, do a cleansing, and you're all done, and that's it, you're finished. It
Right.
doesn't work that way. It does not work that way with
Yes.
residential cases. If you want to investigate places like that, stick to historical sites, stick
Yeah.
to other places, but you can't go to a residential home that might have something
Yes.
negative. Think you can go in, collect all the evidence. Oh, this is what we found. Just tell it to leave you alone, and it's going to leave you alone. It doesn't work.
No.
It really doesn't work. It might in the case of a human spirit, but
Yes.
not in the case of something that's really negative and may have been there for a while, or the case of something that's demonic, or the case of something that's elemental, which
Yes.
is a whole other
Exactly.
thing.
Exactly.
Right? It doesn't work. So you've got to work with people and keep going back. And, not every team is meant to do that. And that's okay. And that's
Uh,
okay.
Let me tell you something.
You have,
I've heard of
you have,
some
you
teams
have
that have
patience.
like peeled out when they realize what.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you're dealing with some people that may have some issues, and you may be dealing with things that you never dealt with before.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it'd be great to. I've talked to people over the week. It'd be great to have something like a negative case, and like, no, it's not.
No, it's
It's
not.
really not.
No,
You
it's
don't want that. Trust
not.
me, you really don't want that. Even just a negative spirit, you really don't want to deal with that. You
No.
know, because it's a lot of commitment, and
Exactly.
it's not just. And that's where I've had trouble. I get calls from people in other states, and it's hard to find. I will say this: it is hard to find good residential teams in other states.
Yes.
And I say residential teams because they go in, they investigate, they give these people what they found, and they walk away. And
And
I
then
said,
what?
I discussed with them, now you're going to go back and do a cleansing. Oh yeah, 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 we do all that, we do. And they never go back.
Right.
And I've seen it more times than not. And so I'm trying to figure out, get better information from other people of who can I trust in this state that will
Yes.
do
And
this and
that's
that, because sometimes you got states out in the Midwest or out in California, I can't do it, and I have no real contact out there.
yes.
So I try to do a little research myself, and I talk to them before I even tell them. I try to feel them out, but it doesn't always work out. So, not picking on other teams, but that
Yeah.
type of stuff is not for every team out there. Um, and some individuals are even better at it.
Well, it's sometimes it's, for lack of a better word, I know this is complicated in the sense of the dynamics in the house. Um, you know, I
Yeah,
sometimes if you're willing to help, some people allow themselves to be helped, and then there's going to be clients that even if you want to help them, they don't. But like you said, ultimately it's their
yeah,
choice.
it is. Yeah,
But as
yeah,
long as you're
yeah,
willing to, and it's really funny because you go from the one extreme where there's absolutely nothing there paranormal except maybe a raccoon that got in your attic,
yeah, yeah.
or
Which
pigeons
is
or
possible,
whatever,
right? Which is possible.
or to, and that's why I use the word non-human versus demon, because like you said, it could be an elemental. There's a whole host of non-human entities
Right,
that don't
right.
have to fall into the realm of the demonic per se. I mean,
That's correct.
there's
Yeah.
a whole
Yeah.
host of them. I mean, it could go from one end to the other, and um, I've found in my experience that some of the darker ones sometimes, I'm not going to say all the time, but elementals, uh, the darker ones, I want to say sometimes I've seen it that it's almost a familial thing, okay?
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Where
Yep.
if the person really opens up to you and starts to talk to you about it,
Right.
their family sometimes it's almost like has been having experiences along those lines, and it's like, okay, this is not this location, which
Right.
means you move away, and sometimes they'll even tell you that they've been moving away trying to get away from this, and of course it shows up every time they're still at a new location.
Right. It's because
um,
it's with them. That's why.
it's with them.
Yeah.
It's with them. And I say, so this is the thing, you can't run this. You've got to face it and overcome it.
Right, right. And
um,
sometimes some things like that can be what's called a negative thought form too, which is
yes,
created by
yes,
the people themselves because of
yes,
all the negativity. Um, and
yes.
it becomes its own being in a way.
Mm-hmm.
It takes on its own
Yeah,
life. And that will just kind of follow you around,
yeah.
And it's not necessarily a ghost. It was not
Nope.
human, but you
But
created it through all this negativity and arguing and all these things,
yes,
so there's weird cases like that too, so you got to
yeah.
try to figure that out too.
Yeah, and,
So
and, and and you would think some people can't understand the concept of what you described. Like, well, if you created it, why would it do something negative against you? And I go, yeah, because you lose control of it.
yeah,
In
yeah, it
other
becomes its
words,
own thing. Yeah, it becomes
and
its own thing.
exactly. And this is usually when you get a lot of obsessive thought about stuff, thinking that,
Yep.
yeah, you kind of like breathe life into it, and then it does its
Yeah.
own thing and makes you pull your hair out. And yeah, a lot of people sometimes have a hard time realizing that not all the origins of everything have to be spirit per se.
No, 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 they don't. They really don't. And it's once you get into this world of the paranormal, you find all this stuff out. There's a lot more to it than you
Oh
ever thought it was.
yes.
It's not just what you see on TV.
No,
You
no,
know?
no, no.
No, and it's not quite as exciting as what you see on TV either.
Well, it can be. It could be.
The
It's
real
not as
investigating part,
exciting.
anyway.
It's weird, but not as commonplace sometimes the weird stuff as people think. Like that, every time you're gonna come across something really unusual, and I go,
Yeah,
yeah, it happens, but, and that's one of the things, I in some of my other shows I've told people, whether you're looking to join a paranormal team or you think you need to bring a paranormal team, I said, number one, you need somebody that's been around, that they've been established for a while. Because I say a lot of paranormal teams, they kind of fall apart within the first 1 or 2 years, okay? Either because of what I call paradrama, or they realize it's not as exciting as they thought it was going to be.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
said,
yeah.
so if you're going to join a team, try to look for somebody that's been together for a while. Or if you're
Yeah,
going to have somebody come to your house, basically you're letting strangers come into your home,
yeah,
you need to look for somebody or a team that's been together for a while, and then you speak to that person, and usually the founder or the team leader, and get a feel for them. And I said, and if you don't feel right about it, like, then you can always say no, because you're basically
yeah,
opening your doors to strangers. And
yeah.
unfortunately, and I'm sure you've heard about it, where some teams sometimes make things worse.
Oh yes, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've worked a couple of those cases.
well, you're the
So
cleanup
nothing
crew.
against the other teams, but
Yeah.
it,
No, of
it's
course.
yeah. Everybody has their skill level or their learning level or whatever you want to call it, level of education. Okay, let's
Well,
call it that. And newer teams just getting in, they're still trying to figure it out, and you make mistakes. We made
sure.
mistakes.
Yes.
But I always tell teams, again, it goes back to don't be afraid to reach out for help
Yes.
and to ask the more seasoned groups that are out there for
Yes.
advice and assistance, and you'll get it. Typically, you'll get it,
Well,
but don't be afraid to do that. Don't think you have to do it on your own, or that you even can do it on your own right away.
well,
Um,
of course not. And this is,
yeah,
and and well, like you said, you've even written a book about paranormal, about a guidebook, in other words. And
yeah, it's kinda like yeah, it's kind of it's actually almost like a textbook, but it reads better than a textbook.
no,
Let me tell
well, and this is, well,
well,
no,
well,
and this is, and the point I'm trying to make,
it's
Jack,
a
and you,
is
and I'm sure you've
is
seen it. You have gone through years of experience, and this is what I tell everybody. You know, you could read all the books, whether they're about stories, true life, or guidebooks, but I go, there's nothing that replaces field work. Field work is field work.
Right.
And
Right.
this is how you learn to be a good investigator. You're going to go out in the cases that you're like, oh my God,
Right.
I just
Right.
spent 5 hours fighting off sleep and nothing happens. And I go, but nothing
Right.
replaces field work, okay, on
Right. Which
gaining
is
experience. And like you said, and if you're not there at that experience level yet or that expertise, then you
right.
reach out to somebody and say, help.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, exactly. Exactly. And that's actually why the book the more recent book I wrote, the Paranormal Research Comprehensive Guide to Building a Strong Team, and that's what my publisher named it, which is okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been my
Hey,
choice, but that's okay. It works. They're the publisher. They've been around for a long time. But
exactly.
anyways, in that book, I talk a lot about how to talk to spirit. That part of it's not just about equipment and setting it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, but it's also about the paranormal, about the spiritual, and about how to talk to spirit and not using just the canned things. But it's also I include in there a few of our investigations, and some of them earlier ones and some of them later ones, and the real truth of here's what happened on these investigations, here's what we experienced, here's what we did. And then at each end of those cases is one of my investigators. I had them give their insight into what that case meant to them, what they got
Okay.
from it, and what they experienced during it. So you get some insight from an investigator themselves of, hey, this is
Mm-hmm.
this is what it meant to me, this is what I found out, this is what I learned from it. So it goes a little bit deeper than just a typical, oh yeah, here's your equipment, set it up to this, set up this here, do that
Uh-huh.
there,
Exactly.
all that. It goes much deeper than that, really. And trying to really teach people this is what investigating is about, and this is how you go this is how we were successful going about it, and
Yes.
these are the things that we went through and the things we experienced as well. um, so I'm actually even looking at actually talking to my local college about giving classes on it,
I think that would be
and
fantastic.
they're actually the college is receptive to it, so which is interesting. So
I think that's great. I think
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah. So and we got a local place where we can take them and investigate after. It'd be like a continuing education course, like maybe a 4 or 5 week
yeah.
course, a couple nights a week, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. Um, so yeah, I mean, the college is kind of really interested in it. Publisher was really interested in that, like,
Yes.
yeah,
I
of course.
I think
But
it's
I may
it's
try it and
it's
see how it
almost like
goes, and
dispel
but
the
I've got a
myth from the truth.
curriculum. Yeah, and that's kind of what it is. But I've also got to set up a curriculum for
Yeah.
it and all that. So you've got to do your outline of your curriculum and what you're going to do, which even that's uh, giving me some interesting insights into how to go about this, and to what are we really talking about here, and what subjects do we want to talk
Yeah.
about that will teach people things about the paranormal. And
Yes.
if they want to get into it, the right way to get into it, and setting your egos aside, and
Yes.
learning from other more experienced people, and even getting the other teams I know in the area that are much more experienced to be able to say, okay, well, we'll get involved with it, and we'll let them reach out to us and just even answer questions for them.
Yes.
um, because a lot of teams don't think about doing that, and it's like we need to take it that next step, and if somebody calls you or emails you, answer their questions. Maybe
Sure.
you can't let them on your team, but say, hey, what questions do you have, what do you want to learn, what do you want to
Yes.
find out?
And
And I've
sometimes,
helped.
you know what? If sometimes somebody's in a jam and they need, let's say you've got somebody that you know is an expert in a certain field that you could pick up a phone and call them
Yeah.
and say, "Look, I need to like brainstorm this a little bit with you because
Yeah.
I'm not sure. What do you think?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you've networked, and the reason why I bring that up is because I've been a freelance investigator all my life,
Yeah.
and I worked with a foundation that runs all of Florida, and even I've worked with other groups outside of Florida, but usually they would give me a call, either one because there was something in South Florida, or two because they were short, let's say, on an investigation, a
Right.
member, somebody, and they would sometimes, if I could, I would travel a little bit.
Right.
So I
Right.
that's how you learn, and thankfully that one of the things that I learned with this the research foundation that I work with is that they would work also with other groups in the state. In other words, you would
Right.
cooperate, and you learned a lot. I mean, a lot
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what we've done all these years is we've talked to other teams and people we've known been doing it longer than our teams. And
Yes.
now, we're one of the people are coming to and asking stuff to, and that's fine. I answer. People I always get I don't know, kind of surprised when, because I'm on TV, I'll get people friend me on Facebook, or people reach out to me on Facebook, message me, and I answer them, and they'll go, "Oh my God, you actually answered me. I didn't expect you to actually answer me." I'm like, "Well, why not? That's what I'm here for." "Well, you're on TV." "Yeah, so
Yeah.
what's that got to do with anything?" "Yeah, you're reaching out to me to ask me a question. I'm going to answer you, because I feel that's what I'm here for. It's
Right.
part of what I'm here for is somebody wants to know about this, they're interested, or they're passionate about it. I'm going to help them. I'm going to give them the answers, and I'll chat with them as long as I get time. I say, look, I may not get back to you right away, but I will eventually get back to you. Don't give up.
Right.
I'll answer you, and if I didn't answer you the first time, message me again in a couple days. Because I'll probably forget. But I do see them all, and I try to remember to get back to everybody when I can. You know,
Right.
so I just try to do that, and that is networking in itself, reaching out to
Yes.
people and giving them advice, and
Yes.
and just
Yes.
sometimes they want somebody to tell their experience to, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
I'll listen.
And
You
you know
know.
what? It's really
I'll,
surprising, but sometimes people feel more comfortable talking to a stranger. When I mean a stranger, like as not a
yeah.
friend, not a family member.
Right. Right. Exactly.
They
Exactly.
they feel better. Like, I know you're not going to say anything, but I need to get this off my chest.
Well, that's exactly it. And I mean, they're telling me, and I'm not going to say nothing.
Yeah.
Who am I going to tell?
Yeah.
Oh, I could tell the world. I'll write a book about it. Wait, hang on. No,
Yeah.
no, I
Exactly.
wouldn't do that
Yes.
anyway. But, yeah, they just want somebody to tell their experience
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. I mean,
That's just like recently I put out a call for this new company I'm actually going up this week to Canada, or next week to Canada to film with. And it's for a show called Haunted Hospitals. They said, can you put out
yes. Yes.
something,
I've
reach
heard
out
that. They,
yeah, I'm going to be filming as one of their quote experts.
okay.
But they asked me, can you reach out to me? We're short a few stories. Can you reach out to some people? And I said, yeah, sure I can.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I reach out, and there's some people like, oh yeah, I'd like to do it, and I got this. And then there's some people like, well, I don't have the story, but I'd like to tell you about this. And I'm like, yeah, cool. Yeah, let's hear about it. It doesn't fit, I know, but I just wanted to tell you about it. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine. And I listen to they write their story, and some of them are really interesting. I go, wow,
Yeah.
That's a really interesting story.
Well, you
They're
know
like, well, I
what?
don't
Maybe
want it
we'll
on
cross
TV or
paths
anything.
because they reached out to me too. So,
Well, we might. I'll be going up. I'll be filming Tuesday next week up there.
but well, you know what? The thing is that I think because of, and I'm not going to get into it, that since we're all the way
Yeah.
down in Florida for us,
Yeah.
there's an additional cost to getting us from point A to point B. So,
Well, they got to pay it if they want you bad enough.
yeah, I know, and they have,
Yeah. 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 They gotta pay to fly you.
yeah,
And they do all that, and
yeah,
it's fine.
and they were very.
For me,
I was.
for me, it's a 6 hour drive. I drive
I
because
was
it's
gonna
not.
say you're way up there, but it's different. It's
Yeah.
yeah. If it was a six
Yeah.
hour
When
drive,
you're
I
that
would.
far away, they gotta fly you. Yeah. Yeah. But they're good people and
Yeah,
stuff.
I had a really
And
good
this
experience with them. I really did.
Yeah, this is a different production company than Our House Media. It's
Yeah.
another one.
Mhm.
But they seem like good people too, and
Yeah.
I know some people have already filmed with them and stuff like that. So yeah, I go up
Yeah.
there, I'll film with them, and we'll have some fun or whatever. We'll get it done, and I'll head home. But I am actually going to be in Buffalo Buffalo, New York this weekend anyway for the Carnival of Parahorror. So I'll
Oh
be
my
at that
God,
event.
really?
Yeah, yeah, at Buffalo Central Terminal. So we'll be doing that event. I'll be doing a lecture Saturday. I'll also be the celebrity ghost hunt guy, quote, Saturday night. So if anybody
Really?
wants to come out and investigate with me, I'll be there.
You know what? I was in Buffalo. I think. Excuse me. When I went to Waverly Hills, I want to say like 3 years ago. Because sometimes time escapes me. Time goes by quicker than you realize.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It flies by.
Um, Not Waverly Hills. Am I thinking of the wrong?
Rolling Hills, Rolling Hills.
Rolling Hills. I'm sorry. After a
So I
while,
was
all
just
these
there last
asylums you
year
get
for the first
confused
time
on.
myself. Yeah, I was just there. Was it this year or last year for the first time myself at Rolling Hills?
And
Yeah.
you know what? It's apart. That was a real creepy place. But anyway, one of the
Oh, I
things
had some experiences there. I know. Yeah,
that
I
that
actually
let
had
me
some experiences there.
one of the things, and I went back after the, because we got there when the sun was going down, but then afterwards, I went back the next day, and
Yeah.
that's in the middle of nowhere now. It's now in the middle of
Nope.
nowhere,
Yeah.
so I can imagine that back in when they established it, the mid 1800s or whatever, that really must have been so remote. Like when they wanted to get people out of town, this was the place to take them.
Yeah. 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 Well, that little town, the closest town where you can stay at is the closest town.
Yeah.
So, so
No, it was
I'm
like,
sure it was smaller back then. It's a little bit bigger town. They even got a casino now, but I think it was a little smaller way back when.
yes.
So yeah, it's out in the middle of nowhere. But I would say this. I don't know about you, but I picked up on an energy on it as I drove to it.
Yes.
Even about a mile before I got to it.
Yes. And
Um, I picked up on a woman screaming, just screaming insanely. I don't know what that was about, but that's what I picked up on.
well,
But we had some very interesting experiences while we were there, and
yes.
it's an interesting place. It's a very interesting place, and I never would have thought, because I usually don't investigate those places because they've been done over and
And
over and
over
over.
and over again. Exactly. Well, we were
You know,
lucky that when we got there was only four other people besides ourselves, and two of them
yeah,
left very quickly.
yeah.
And we even did later on the owner, Sharon, I think it's her name, Sharon, and the other gentleman that was with her, we did some flashlight work way up there on the third floor,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and that was really interesting. We did a lot of stuff that normally, but
Super.
um, and I don't know if you had this experience. It was so much colder in there. It was freezing.
There was one of the rooms. It was.
It was
Yeah,
freezing
yeah,
out. It was cold outside. How's about this? It was cold outside.
yeah. But I know what you're talking
But
about.
when you
Yeah,
walked
yeah.
in there, considering that, yeah, I mean, I know I mean, it was like significantly colder. It was like, what is this?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about because it was actually we were there. It was warmer when we were there, and yeah, I forget which location it was. On the third floor, it was like there's a room that was really cold.
Uh huh.
And it's like, that's interesting,
Yeah,
because
no, that.
it's warm out and it's cold in this room. There's no air conditioning, so let's see, and we're on the third floor, so it should be hot up here,
Yes.
and it was in the other rooms, but in that room it was cold. Yeah.
No, it
I
was
think that's where the one guy stayed. They kept the one.
Well, there was
Uh,
that the guy that had Giganticus, the Roy, I think his name is, the one that
yeah,
was like
Roy
seven.
was. Yeah. Roy had a room down on the second or first floor though.
Right. I know that
The
he was.
third floor was a guy who was a little bit nuts,
Right.
and that was his room up there. He's closer to where the doctors and stuff were.
Uh huh.
And that's the guy's room that was really cold. We had some weird things happen
Yeah.
there.
It was. It was an unusual. It was. We were laughing because there's two other girls that when we went, she gave us like a quick tour and then she goes, "Here's your flashlights, off you go."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they told us, "Can we go with you guys?" We said, "Sure, come along." And it was funny because I was laughing like, let's let's go in this room and let's just like let's check it out. Let's see what's
Right.
what. And if I was moved towards the door, all of a sudden I'd have them like right up behind me, like, "You're not leaving us in here by yourselves." It's like, it's okay, guys. You can step back a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna leave you right here. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm
Exactly,
gonna leave you
exactly.
right
It
there.
was like,
Well, I think the interesting thing about that place is there's really not anything negative in that place. I
hmm
mean, not that's gonna hurt you. Might scratch you, something like that, but
I just think it has a lot
there's
of
nothing
layers of,
demonic there. There's nothing evil there. It's just, these people had issues, they had
yeah,
problems. Some of them are still there.
yes,
Some of it's just the energy that's still there.
yeah,
Um, but it's a place you can go. You can have some really crazy experiences
yes, you can,
and not have to worry too much. You want to make sure you clear yourself so you don't bring anything home with you.
yes,
But you can go there and really experience a real haunted location, a true haunted
yes,
location.
yes,
Um, so I kind of recommend it to people, if they've never investigated before and they're looking for a
yeah.
place to
Let
go.
me tell you something.
It's
And it's
good.
got
It's
the
a good
creepy
spot for
setting also.
beginners. It does have the creepy setting. Yeah, that goes without saying. A good friend of mine, Steve Brott, had spent a lot of time there. He's with South Glens Falls Paranormal. He used to spend a ton of time there, going back and forth from here in Albany, New York, back out to Buffalo, out to that area every weekend,
Wow.
and helping out cleaning the place
hmm
and shoveling into the place during the winter and all that stuff. And he's had tons of experiences there, and he's a young fella, but he's had a lot of experiences out there, and he's a good guy, and he can tell you a ton of. Steve Broad is his name. You can look him up on Facebook. He can tell you a ton of things about the place, because he just spent years out there, back and forth, and every weekend back and forth.
And I bet what, considering that he probably has seen a lot of different things.
He has, and his team, because his team go. He's seen a lot of stuff out there and experienced a lot of things, and he's a good guy too. And he's one of those guys that'll talk to you, reach out.
No, this is those are some, I've gone to like Trans-Allegheny. I've gone to a bunch of the asylums, and I tell people, it goes without saying that these places are going to have residual and intelligent stuff. And I said, because
Right.
let's face it, like you said, the people that were there had some of them severe issues, and for some of them this was their home. They kind of lived out the majority of their lives there.
Right.
Like, how
Right.
some people haunt their homes. Well, this was their home to them.
That's right.
And I said that some of them are, that they're active, yeah. But you still got to be careful when you go there sometimes, like you said. Make sure nobody wants to come back with you.
Yeah. You do cleansing before you leave that place. No
Yes.
matter what. I do that anyway, no matter what investigation I'm on.
Oh,
so,
I'm glad you brought that up,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
tell
it's
everybody,
important.
yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people I talk to don't know how to do that, and I'm like, well, I can tell you or teach you or show you, and we do, because it's important. Because I even talk during my lectures. It's important to remember we're dealing with a spiritual realm within the paranormal. It's not just about
Yes.
equipment and trying to catch EVPs. You're dealing with spirit. You're dealing with people's souls. It's a spiritual realm. You need to be grounded in some type of spiritual protection.
Yes.
So, it's important. You can't do it without it,
Yes.
and you shouldn't do it without it.
No.
And there's a lot of people don't believe in anything anymore.
I know.
So I tell them, find something you connect with. And sometimes we'll sit and talk about it, and they'll say, well, I think, I connect with this or that. I'm like, okay, good. It's good. Go with that. Go with Wiccan, look into Wicca, look into paganism, look
Whatever.
into these different, whatever, as long as it's positive.
Yes.
Stay with the positive, but
Yes.
go with what works for you, and then just, keep yourself grounded in that. And that's, I think, even part of what I talk about in my book too. So, because it's important. You can't really do this field without that.
Well,
You can't keep it separate.
and
It's impossible.
and this is, I think, what you're pointing out right now, Jack, is so important, because like I tell people, sometimes when you get, and I don't want to say an attachment, let's say you're a paranormal investigator, and you go in there
Right.
and you're vulnerable for whatever reason. You're tired, you're exhausted, emotionally you're having a problem, whatever. It could be anything. And something decides, hey, I'm going to go with that guy.
Right.
I said, contrary to what Hollywood shows you, 3 days later things don't go flying around your house. Sometimes, especially if it's a little bit dark and malevolent,
Yeah.
it takes sometimes days, weeks, and months for things
Yeah.
to little by little unravel. And then when this person realizes the point of origin, they'll realize everything started after, let's say, they had that one investigation.
Right.
But sometimes it takes them months and months and months and months sometimes before they catch on.
Right. Right.
And I go, where all parts of their lives are all of a sudden by this I don't mean nobody has a perfect life, but where all of
No.
a sudden so many things take a left turn for them
Yeah.
across the board. And then you explain, where maybe they start experiencing these bouts of unexpected anger, or in some cases even depression. I mean, it could be a host of things.
Yeah.
And I think that what you were talking about, that's when it becomes so important, is when that person has some type of spiritual anchor,
Yes.
that if
Yep.
that starts to happen with them, that they can call on whatever their spiritual belief is for protection, for
Right.
help.
Right.
Because that can
Right.
basically derail if there's anything that's attached to them.
Right. Right. Yes,
Before-
it can. It can. And that's a whole other part of residential cases and stuff
Yes.
too, getting people to connect back to a faith or find a
Yes.
faith.
Yes.
You know, um, they're comfortable with, and that they feel works for them. And that's a big part of resolving these issues too. Again, that's why people, when you tell them you have to take an active part in getting rid of your, and dealing with your haunting,
Yes.
they don't want to hear that,
No.
because it means they got to do some work. So,
well, and I think
it's very so,
You know what? And I think it's really funny. They're hesitant, like they don't, or if, like you said, they might have some religious background. Maybe they were brought up in a certain religion, but they're
Right.
not really anymore. They're barely
Right.
spiritual at most. I'm thinking to myself, having this type of experience that you think this would make a believer out of me. This would bring me right back to my religion real quick, because it'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
this is not the regular everyday things. I'm experiencing
Right.
something that has to do with the spiritual world, the unseen world. So
Yep.
how can
Yep.
you
That's true.
not be willing to participate or do something on a belief system when you're having to deal with this phenomena? It's like, how can you
Because many of us are just naturally lazy.
yeah, you're right.
It's like, I got to get up every Sunday and go to church
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, depending on
Can I just live with a ghost? Well, I'm just saying,
no,
it's just
right, no,
it's
no.
It's not that we're lazy. It's that a lot of us in our life, there's so much going on these days. It's like one more thing I have to do.
Yes.
I mean, that's really what it is. I joke about it, but that's really, it's like, oh my, I got one more thing I have to do. Yes, it's going to
Yes.
be to resolve this. Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And you should keep doing it, but that's why I say, try to find something that you're not going to look at it that way and go, one more thing I have to do.
Right.
Oh, this is the thing I want to do.
Yes.
It's one of the things I want to do. I want to go back to this church or that church or
Mhm.
or this faith, or find one that works for you, that you enjoy going to, and not that you feel you have to go
Right.
to.
Not like it's not a
And
chore. It's like,
right, yeah. Don't make it a chore. Make it something that's fun and that you want to go do. It's a
yes.
positive thing in your life. And once you start to get through to people that way, then that's how they start to look at it, and they do go back.
Right.
And they find that, oh yeah, I really liked it. I'm really enjoying it. Okay, good. That's what it's about.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not the chore.
the good thing about it that there's nowadays there's a lot of different choices, even if it's non-denominational. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yes. And that's just it. That's why I don't push anything on anybody. I mean, I'm Roman Catholic, but I don't push that
Yeah,
on
exactly.
anybody. And they ask me, I tell them. Oh, okay. Well, should I do it? No, not if that's not what you're into. You should find what you're into first, and that's where we'll talk and say, well, what do you connect with? What do you kind of lean to?
Exactly.
As far as these things. Well, and you talk about it, and you'll finally figure it out. Maybe you should look at this. That might be something that religion you might find really interesting. Oh, okay.
But you know what, Jack, and I say this especially for my audience, because I know I have a lot of people out there. I said, even if, let's say, you're, for whatever your reasons for not wanting to go to church, I say, if people are willing to use prayer, let's say at home, let's say they're having
Right.
this experience. It doesn't even have to be, like, let's say, even if you're not Catholic or Christian, it doesn't even have to be in Our Father. If you're willing to pray and ask for protection
Right.
from the divine, that's as generic as I can get there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
From the divine, you are going to get it. I mean, you don't, it's not like, okay, it's not like, okay, well, if I'm not in church, then don't worry, if for whatever your reason you're
Right.
not there yet,
Right.
you can still pray, and you can make it like,
Yes.
help, help,
Help, I need
take
some
care
help.
of me, help me, take care of my children, or
Yeah.
protect my
Sure.
family.
Sure.
And it doesn't have to be formalized, I guess, is what I'm saying, as far as
That's true. That is true. Yes, you just have to find something, that you can connect with and
Mhm.
and follow some type of routine with.
Yes.
Ask for help from. Don't always ask for help. Ask for
well,
guidance.
no, whatever. Let's say, and this
Yeah.
is for like, this is like, I'm talking about these circumstances, like we're talking about somebody
Yeah.
that's either was never religious or drifted away from whatever the religion was, and
Right.
they haven't gone
Exactly.
to church or temple or whatever,
Exactly.
and they're kind of, I don't even want to say they're agnostic, but it's like, and all of a sudden they find themselves in this situation, like you said, hey, I came here and I helped you out, but you realize for whatever reason, because of you or maybe dynamics in your house, you're going to have to kind of, like you said, do the work
Right,
after I
right,
leave.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. There's still some things you gotta have to do, and
Right.
but we don't just walk away. Again, we don't just
Yeah.
walk away either. I'm there for them to call or talk to or whatever, and I'll ask them the hard questions and say, "Well, have you done this? What I suggest you?" Well, no. Well, remember, you still got to do that. You still should do that. I don't tell them they have to. I say you still
Right,
should do
exactly. It's
that.
up to you.
It's up to you, but and eventually they do.
Absolutely.
It's
I'm telling you, it was great. I love talking to somebody like yourself who has so much experience in the field.
thanks.
Take care, okay?
Well, you as well, and you too. Take care as well, and
Bye
blessed
bye.
be.
Okay, guys. So, what did you think? Wow. I'm telling you. See, again, this is the kind of guest that I love to have because what he was saying. He has a lot of experience. He's seen a lot of different things. He's dealt with different clients. Like he said, he's gone from regular haunted house, dead person, maybe auntie or uncle or the old owner to what he was describing lately that he's seen a lot of dark cases. And like he said, you, I guess, depending on what point or what it is you run across, you back out and reconnoiter if that's what you have to do. And I know I've said this before, but um, a lot of times, sometimes depending on, let's say, a pre-interview that you do with a client, depending on what they describe, sometimes you kind of get an idea if it's dark, but sometimes you really don't till you get there. And in some cases, because the client themselves kind of fudge a little bit. And by this, what I mean is they kind of course describe things, but they're almost scared of scaring you off as an investigator. So they kind of omit the darker aspects of what's been happening to them or in their home because they're afraid that the investigator is going to say, or the team is going to say, no, or no, we can't, or which, by the way, does happen. It does happen, or it might have even happened to them, but they kind of are thinking, I need to get somebody out here. Okay. And then, of course, when you go out there, depending on what exactly happens, or also the experience of the investigative team, then they realize, okay, there's more to this here than just, okay, it's not their imagination. It's not the pigeon in the rafters. There is something here. And not only is there something here, or in some cases, and I've talked about this because I've done what Jack says about that you give people a questionnaire that they fill out. But again, and I've done this before because I would do two-part investigations, and I did point for a lot of investigations where besides that, I would take each of the family members aside, way, as a matter of fact, another room or outside, out of hearing, out of a way that they knew that there was no way that they could be overheard by the other family members, and I would interview them. And a lot of times, I would hear a lot of things that were not on that piece of paper. Okay. Why? Because they were afraid to write it down. They, believe it or not, people, whether it's the adults or teenagers or whoever, were afraid of letting other family members know of either experiences that had all their lives or something recent that they had engaged in. Okay. And only when you take them aside by themselves, and it's like, I'm not going to talk, but, and then you hear sometimes things come out that's not on that piece of paper, which, by the way, gives you a good idea of what you're dealing with. And then they'll tell you, well, you know what, especially if they're the target person, if they're the ones getting targeted. I have had these experiences. I've felt touching, horrible dreams, things that point to something more sinister than just like, oh, I hear somebody walking up and down the stairs, or I hear somebody rummaging around in my kitchen, closing and opening the cupboards. Okay, well, no, they start talking about something darker. Okay. Uh, and then that's what I'm saying. It's sometimes not till you get there and you're in the thick of it, do you realize, okay, I'm going to investigate this, but I'm already, based on what this person or persons told me, and sometimes no, sometimes the person has been totally honest with the other adult in the house, if that's the case, and they kind of say, well, yeah, but, like, again, sometimes you get a whole mood of information that's not on the paper. Again, because they don't know you. Number one, they don't really know you. So there's a trust, but not a trust. Like, man. And when they meet you, and if you make that connection with them, and they realize you're really there to help them, and you kind of like basically, especially if you kind of like, and I think you develop these little antennas after a while, that when people are holding back a little bit, and you kind of like let them know, if you want me to help you, you got to tell me everything. Like, there's something here that's missing. You've told me all this stuff, and maybe you wrote all this thing in this paper, but I feel like there's something, and then I can't help you if you don't. And then not all the time, obviously, but sometimes, like I said, usually in the darker cases, you get more information, more examples. Sometimes the other person, like I said, you'd be surprised. There's people that will be married to another person. That person, there's something there, they haven't talked to them, and it's like, okay, I can help you. I'm not about to tell you, but you need to, after we leave, depending on how, you need to consider, or do I have your permission? Let's talk about this, or because you're keeping this other person you're living with in the dark as to what the source of this might possibly be. And I've said it before. I've come across people that it's a family thing. Some of them have fear they've crossed somebody that's put a curse on. I mean, you'll hear a lot of wild stuff out there that people just don't put on a piece of paper, even though that usually is what he said is very true. If people are willing to fill out a questionnaire of several pages, chances are very good that if they don't, they do truly believe that what they're experiencing in their house is really supernatural. Because believe me, nobody goes through that trouble. Because like you said, people just like, oh my God, I didn't know how, oh no, I just thought you were going to come over and whatever and tell me who is it. Do I got to go? So what's his name or her name? It's like, okay, yeah, you're real scared. I could tell. You're too excited about this. And again, and I know there's a lot of paranormal investigators who disagree on this point. And everybody's entitled to their opinions based on their experiences, and I'm going to say it again, and I stick to my guns. I don't ever recommend. And in one respect, I do say you can't force somebody to do this, but I never ever recommend to anybody to coexist with an earthbound spirit. I don't care, because that inevitably goes bad. Sometimes I find out about, sometimes it's like, I know. Or sometimes you get called in because after so many years, it's really starting to go dark. The reason for this is, whenever you have an earthbound spirit, and I don't care if it's your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your kid, or the old owner of the house, what happens to most human beings when they're frustrated and unhappy? Because that's exactly what a spirit is that's earthbound. Okay. They're caught, okay, in this loop of either, if depending also on where they are, of either seeing other human beings with bodies carrying on life, and they're stuck. And bottom line is, it fuels all the worst characteristics in a human being. Whereas a person that was just a regular person starts getting like jealous and upset and because they're trapped. So I'm saying it's inevitable that it becomes bad. Okay, it's like, what? And then I tell them, oh, because, well, this was his house. And it's like, listen to me. Whenever a spirit of a human being still thinks that they need this house, or their ego still thinks this is my house, I built it, or I lived here 50 years, that's a problem. Because when you die and you go into, you ascend, you realize, and you shed your body, and you get that understanding. It's like, that ownership of the house, that doesn't matter to me anymore. Of the material things, I don't need that anymore. I don't have a human body. Those things are ego-driven things that we as human beings have, which is ownership of the structure, ownership of people, ownership of things, the car. This is stuff that we deal with as human beings with regular bodies. So whenever you get a spirit, it could be the nicest person that gets trapped for whatever reason. Okay, it always goes bad to let that person stay there. Now, I recommend to a lot of people, um, we could cross the spirit over and help them bring somebody there. I mean, people don't realize that when you cross the spirit over, it's not like you're taking them and you're booting them out the front door. What you do is, you know, it's a process by where either, depending, you pray for that person's soul. You ask for somebody that they loved and trusted to comfort them, okay? And you urge them, it's going to be okay. Sometimes people stay behind because they're scared. They have a lot of fears. Sometimes they were even a fearful person when they were alive. And this fear of whatever, of the unknown, they carry it in death. And it's like, I'm really not happy now, but this was my house and I'll just stay here. No, you need to help that soul go on and be in the happy place where we're all meant to be in the presence of the divine, not this in between gray place where it's meant for human beings and you with bodies, with bodies, because they're still human beings, but with bodies, with physical bodies. So again, I say, a lot of people disagree with me. I don't ever recommend it. I don't ever recommend it. I don't care who that person is. You should help them go along. Once they ascend, once they're in the presence of the divine, if they were, let's say, a loved one, they're going to come back and visit you and check on you, make sure you're okay, and maybe drop something off maybe on a certain date or an anniversary just to let you know, hey, I'm aware. But they're not stuck there. They're not bound there. They see what's the curve on the road. They see what's coming and they know this is your turn now to figure things out and do what you're supposed to do. Okay? So they're not stuck there. They're not bound there. Um, and when you do that, you're freeing them. And I guess this is as a matter of fact, there's one of my favorite books, which is by a lady called, she was a doctor, and she wrote a book, Ireland Frey is her last name, and she wrote a book called Freeing the Captives, okay? And what she meant by was earthbound spirits. You're freeing them. You're not kicking them out. And in some cases, let's say you had somebody that was very Catholic. You asked to have a mass said for them. Hello, you can have that. You can request, for the spirit of that person to be included in a mass, in the name of that person. Whatever. It does Catholic. That's just an example. Um, and because and another thing, and a lot of people are going to say, one of the other dangers is that when you get a spirit that stays behind, especially the type of personality that didn't want to die. One, they weren't ready to die. Sometimes they were young, middle-aged, but bottom line, they were just not ready to die. Okay? Or they thought it was unfair, or they thought it was sudden, or whatever. Besides the fact that they're hanging out and being where they're not supposed to be out of the presence of the divine, it's almost inevitable that presented with a chance in the right circumstances or the right person, they will try to take over somebody because what they want desperately is a human body. And sometimes it's not an out intention of possession, but if you have somebody that's really sick or experienced some type of trauma, it's really weird. You're basically, if you have a discarnate in that household that sees an opportunity and was desperate, didn't want to die, wants to live, they could try to possess that person or at least attach themselves to them always, because the object of an attachment ultimately is possession, folks. Okay, or oppression or more obsession. People don't get it because what does it want? It wants a human body. It wants the senses that are attached to human body. Okay. So this is again Marlene's, and I know a lot of people will disagree with me, and like Jack said, well, they think, well, if it's not harmful or if it's very low key, and I agree with him. You tell people it's your choice, but I tell them ultimately, even if we're out of the picture, by the time you realize that things have gone south, pray for the soul. Pray for the soul or ask them to move on. Ask somebody to come and get them and bring them into the light. And by the way, no provocation, please. No, no provocation. You need to. Ultimately, somebody will come for them, or you talk to them. And I know some people say you're talking to thin air. Yeah, okay. Well, suspend your disbelief and do it. Okay, and tell them, look. First of all, which of course is very important, ownership. Establish your ownership of the space of the house, even if you don't own it, if you rent it, whatever. I live here now. I live here now, and you're dead. You have to say it like that, just in case it's one of these that missed that part of the, you're dead, and this is not the place for you. You're unhappy. Nothing's going to happen to you. You need to have somebody that you really liked and trusted come and get you. And when they come, you need to go with them, because you're going to be a lot better and happier. And anything you want, you're going to get it over there. The answers you want, you're going to get it over there. You say this enough times. And I've had people tell me that they've done it maybe over a couple of months, and then all of a sudden they realize that spirit has left. And it wasn't contrary to sometimes what people see, where it's like, whoa, the ball of light. And sometimes it's very, very subtle when this spirit has moved on and has been taken into the presence of the divine. Some people, besides the obvious that maybe you don't hear or experience the manifestations anymore, I've had people that say it's lighter in the house. I've had people say, man, before I didn't realize how much, like the air was dead in the house. Like sometimes like sounds were deadened, like you couldn't hear things from outside. Like all of a sudden it's like somebody threw open the windows, it's lighter, like in light. You hear more sounds, birds, everything's like something's been lifted from the house or in the apartment or living space. Okay. And they'll say, man, it took me a while and I realized it. And you know what? Now I realize that noise I used to hear about this person or the closet or whatever it was that we're hearing, it's gone. And that feeling that I had that somebody was watching me, it's gone. I just realized that. And yes, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes suspend your disbelief and ask this person to move on and ask somebody to come and get them. Okay? Believe me, there's plenty of people that will come and get them and take them to the best place for a human soul, which is in the presence of the divine. Not here. This is for us folks. But anyway, guys, I hope you like this show. Please subscribe to the channel, or if you're listening to a podcast, so you get notifications when I release new shows. Catch me on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. Also, my true believers, go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, submit your stories. And again, I've got a lot of fantastic guests. Possibly you might be catching me on some other paranormal shows. I've got a few that have contacted me, and also that I might start taking calls live on a radio station for you guys. So we'll see. That all those things are in the works. But in the meantime, please, thank you so much for sharing this time with me. I truly, truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. You are all wonderful. Take care.